afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeremy Gonzales. I am a research scientist at the New Mexico Sentencing Commission. Along with Nancy and Grace, I assist in producing all of our analyses and publications that we put on the website, as well as being an extra set of hands for anything else we need around the commission. Like moderating today's panel on the young adult treatment courts here, being spearheaded by the 2nd, 11th, and 12th JDs, who are being represented by these three lovely ladies here, who I will now give you a chance to introduce themselves. Go down the line, you guys can all give your introductions and talk a little bit about your program.
My name is Tanya, and I'm the Clinical Operations Manager at 2nd Judicial District Court. And I do oversee the Young Adult Court program along with other treatment court programs within the second. Can you hear me? Louder? Okay, so my name is Krista. I'm the Division Director for Programs for the 11th District. I oversee trial services and cross-line courts as well as a few other programs in the district.
I'm Bobbie Shearer. I'm the program manager for the Young Adult Court and Prosecution District, which we're just setting up. And I also serve as the program manager for our competency diversion pilot project.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, thank you, everybody. So, to begin off our panel on the YACs, why don't you guys discuss a little bit about the driving factors behind the creation and some of the hurdles that you may have had to go through in order to create your program and get it started in your district.
I'm going to talk about the Young Adult Court program that's here in Bernalillo County, because we have been up and going, I think, the longest. And the other is, ours is, I like to think of it as an ideal program, but we also have an abundance of resources here within Bernalillo County that I think a lot of other places don't necessarily have. Our program started in 2017. September of 2017. So we've been going for many years. It wasn't a great challenge to get off of the ground, but I will say that when we came up with the idea of a specialty court for this particular target population, not everybody really believed or had the insight that this particular target group needed a different set of resources and approaches and just handling overall. A lot of times we were faced with people that believed or thought that once you turn 18, you're an adult, you should be treated like an adult, and you should go to a regular adult care program. But having a clinical background and then also working in the field of addictions and behavioral health where youth are concerned, we were very aware of that not necessarily being the case. And that when you're working with younger people, specifically between the ages of 18 to 25, there are a lot of things we have to take into consideration, such as brain development, resources, cognitive abilities, childhood, family dynamics, and things like that. So we did have the support, being that we were in Bernalillo County. We didn't necessarily always have the buy-in for starting the Young Adult program. I don't think that compassion was necessarily there, or the idea to be approached. So when we came up with the idea, and we took it to our CEO and said, we'd like to start a very specific program for a very specific target population, we were supported, but based off of existing resources. It's not like there was money or additional services put aside to get this program up and going. With that being said, as we talked to judges, attorneys, and community providers, and we talked to them about the idea of a young adult court program, we did get a lot of support. We had judges that were very interested in this particular population. We had treatment providers that understood things needed to look different and be different. So for us, the support and the team came together very naturally. I guess the last thing that I would say before I pass it on is when you're looking at starting a young adult court program, one of the most important things is making sure you have the right people at the table. Because if you don't have a heart for working with this particular population, it's not something that you can fake. So you either like working with people that can be a little more challenging or guarded. To me, it's a work that comes from the heart. Either you have the desire or you don't. And if you don't, our young people are going to see right through it, and they're going to look at you as just another part of the system.
So I'm not going to reiterate what Tanya said, but it was very similar for us. We started our young adult court because we had to shut down our juvenile court. We could not find a treatment provider that wanted to work with juveniles. And really, I think it was more administrative issues with other agencies, because the same treatment provider that's providing services, that was providing services for our juvenile drug court that we no longer work with, is now providing the same services for our young adults. So I think it was, there's a factor of, not having to deal with parents or other agencies that may kind of interfere with the ability to be able to treat that population. It was fairly easy just because I have a judge that's very bought in. She was our juvenile drug court judge. We have the same prosecutor at the table. We have the same defense counsel at the table. And the treatment provider who's provided excellent services to our to a couple of our other programs. So that part was pretty simple, I think, and just getting the buy-in because everybody has a part of that population. And I was just telling my program manager for today, Brittany Garrison is the one that actually has the real heart for this population. I do too, but she's on it with steroids. I mean, so she's like the one that's really working front end of this population. I just kind of oversee it, make sure that there's funding and everything's in place. But you're working with juveniles. You're just working with juveniles that happen to turn 18 or of that age where a lot of the population thinks that they should be making adult life decisions. They don't have the ability to do that. They have not been taught. They have not been in nurturing environments. And so, you really have to kind of come down to the level where you to provide guidance for them. The biggest challenge I think we had is that we knew that they needed case management. We knew that they needed services that a lot of our adult population needs, but they needed more. We were seeing a pretty significant failure rate in our adult work for this age group, which was another factor and another reason why I wanted to start the program. But their life skills are things that you and I probably think that, these kids should know this. These adults, how to apply for a job. We found out after starting working with this program, and we started in October 2023, none of them had a driver's license. None of them. And none of them knew how to do it. And, I'm thinking, about my daughter where I'm like, just go down to Tempe, get an appointment, and do it. And, you can't do that. You have to walk them through it. You have to take them to the DMV. You have to explain to them what that looks like. It's very intimidating. The world around us is very intimidating for this population, and it's a very scary place. It's not a safe place. And so having that heart and that passion for working with these, I call them kids, but for this population, I think is critical.
So in the 12th Judicial District, we're in Lincoln and Otero County, so we're in a much more rural area than these others, and we're just starting up our program through a grant from the Sentencing Commission. And the impetus behind that was that the 12th Judicial District previously had a juvenile drug court program that they also shut down. And our chief judge realized that she was seeing 100% of the participants in that juvenile drug court coming into the adult criminal system, and felt like our existing adult treatment courts were not the proper place to serve that particular group of individuals. So she wanted to model a juvenile treatment court after what's going on in these other two districts. The challenge for us has been resources. Being in a rural area, we don't have a lot of treatment providers available. So where we are now is that we're working to get all those resources in place, in particular the treatment providers.
Thank you much, guys. So, it sounds like each of you is very passionate about making these programs the best they can be and bringing them to these populations. So even though you spoke about those hurdles that you have to go through, I was thinking maybe you guys could also share a little bit about the successes that you've had with the program. I'm sure there's tons of success stories that you might be able to tell, and I'm sure there's a lot of reward that comes with it. So if you guys want to talk about that a little bit, that would be great.
I like to look at our program as almost every participant who comes in is a success story. The success is going to look different for anybody that comes into the treatment court. But when I think of the bigger picture, and I think about what the people want to hear, when we're trying to really, I guess, convince other people to start a young adult court program within their district, or when we talk and we brag on our program, we speak about those things that hit the hardest. We have clients who, when they come to us, their substance use is so out of control that they've lost everything. They've lost their home, they don't have jobs, they don't have schooling, they don't have anything. But they also don't have their kids. A lot of the participants that come into our program, they've lost custody of their kids, and their kids are sitting in custody or in foster home. So I think some of our biggest successes are when our participants get clean, they get sober, they get on their feet, and they get their kids back. Because that's going to have a ripple effect for generations to come. The return on investment, if we can invest in a young person and they're able to get themselves together and get to a good place and get their kids back and be a parent to their children, what we're doing for our community and what we're doing for that child and what we're doing for the system, everybody all together, I definitely think that that's one of our greatest successes. But I can go on. Some of the successes, they don't look that big, but they're just as important. When you get a young person who their parents have been incarcerated their whole life, they were born substance exposed themselves, they've been in special education, they've been in foster care, they've been in the system, and they think absolutely nothing of themselves. And so many of our young people come into our program, they have no self-esteem. Now it may come off as conduct disorder, or being oppositional or rude or disrespectful or guarded or non-compliant. That's what we call it, right? They're not compliant. But when you look at those young people and you can see beyond that, and you can see that that's truly just how they feel about themselves. They're so beat down and nothing's worked out. And when you can be rejected by your own parents, truthfully, who's going to accept you? And those are the young people that are coming into our program. So, when you want to talk about success, to see a young person actually start to believe in themselves, to look in the mirror and recognize that they're worth more, they're worth a chance, they're worth having a job, they're worth having a family, they're worth being treated with respect and dignity. That's a huge success. I think about when our judges talk to our participants, when they call them up each week, and whether it's because of it's a compliant issue, or because they've done something really great, or because maybe they just got out of bed that day when they hadn't been able to get out of bed for weeks. When I can see that they actually believe what the judge is telling them, that they're worth it. To me, that's a success for them, but it's also a success for our entire program. We see young people that they come to us with these very serious gun charges, because for our young adult court in Bernalillo County, let me just back up and say this, we have 3 tracks. So one is your regular drug court track that we all have in our programs, but one is a fentanyl track. It's specific, so everything that we do is based on fentanyl dependence and addiction, and what the studies show is going to be the best approach for someone dealing with fentanyl addiction. So that track is very specific to that population and that need. And then we also have a gun violence intervention track. So young people that do have substance charges or substance dependency issues, but they also have current gun charges. We created a track specifically for that population because we saw that they were getting sent to prison at record numbers. Right? So what could we do different? But when you see a young person, that's the only life they've ever known, and now you actually send them to school and they get a job, and they start to build self-esteem, they start to believe in themselves, and now they're a regular part of the community, they're giving back, they're proud of their check, you know, that they're making honestly. There's just nothing like it. So to me, success looks different across the board, and for every participant, it's gonna look different. But for us, as people who lead these programs, start these programs, believe in these programs, success is recidivism, right? That's how we kind of gauge it, is what is your recidivism like? And I can tell you for our young adult court program, we've had great recidivism, and you know, we have our program manager here, her name is Coral, she's in the back, so if you'll just, there she is. I didn't tell her I was gonna do that. But right now, our recidivism rate is at 17%, and our success rate is 82.93. And we track it, we continue to track it. We're constantly looking at what's working and what's not. Thank you.
So I can't tell you my recidivism rate because we've only been in place since October 2023. But I'm just gonna piggyback what Tanya said. I think for us, some of the successes that I've recognized is we are getting our butts kicked by fentanyl right now in our county, in San Juan County. And I think for me and for my staff, every day that we have a client that appears and that hasn't OD'd or hasn't absconded has been a success, because that has been, I mean, I'm going to be honest, sometimes it's so discouraging because we're like, what are we doing here? And we've had to, as a team, come back to the table several times and go, okay, we thought this was going to work, this isn't working, we need to change our approach, we need to change this. At one point, you know, we were kind of in a rut with all of our clients, none of them had a job. So we as a team decided, you know, we had the chief of police, we had the DA, we had everybody on the team come together and meet with the clients, and within 2 weeks we had 99% of our kids, the kids having jobs. So, you know, having a job is a huge thing for them, and it really their confidence. But for me, we started about a year and a half ago, right around the same time, we started a GED program in one of our treatment providers we've been blessed with having a GED instructor on our as a treatment provider, and she, you know, she's worked in college. She had, you know, great success rate getting kids, you know, having them accomplish the GED. And she's like, hey, what do you think if I just do a tutoring program for our clients? So she provides GED tutoring for all of our participants for all 4 of our programs, and we've had a really, really good success rate with our clients getting the GED. Just within the last year and a half, well, probably about the year, we've had 6 of our young adult clients get the GED. And I have to say, when you see them, we have a whole ceremony for them. We have a cap, we have a little tassel, which you know, does a little turn it over to the side. You know, has a gown. They take a picture with the judge with the GED. And every single time I see pictures of them, these just because I go back and I remember what one participant said, and they said, you can never take this with me. I mean, I can lose everything, but you can't take it with my education. And we just try to instill in them that, you know, that's something to be very proud of, but also to go to the next step. So we've had several of our clients enroll in college or in vocational classes. So those are the things, because there's a lot of failures. There's a lot of times where, you know, as either a treatment provider, as a program manager, as a PO, you're like just sitting at your desk and, you know, either you had somebody OD or we had somebody respond, you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But you have to focus on the real things. I know that I have to turn in recidivism rates to AOC, and, you know, my success rate, my graduation rate, my retention rate, you know, rate, stats. I get it. We're going to be talking about that in a few minutes too. And I get the importance of running, you know, gathering data and looking at data, but I'm sorry, but those aren't the things that keep you going. The things that keep you going are the personal stories and those personal connections you make.
So again, for the 12, we're just in the very early stages, so I can't use that question.
So I am sure that seeing that success and seeing the look in these individuals' eyes and getting to walk them across that graduation aisle, I'm sure that really goes a long way to getting going, and that's the reason you guys are in there. That's really great. So to close out the panel discussion part of the session today, why don't you guys share a little bit about what you believe is the most important, I guess, piece of information you might want to provide to anybody who would be interested in starting up something like this in their district. Maybe there's a lot of special hurdles that you've had to go through. Bobbie, especially being part of a more rural area, I'm sure there's a lot of pieces of advice that you could give to somebody who want to be starting one of these up.
I would say some of the most important pieces is one, make sure you have the right people at the table. Make sure that the people that you invite to be a part of your program believe in what you're doing. Because if they don't believe in it, it's going to show. This work, we do it because we love it, we believe in it, we believe young people can change. We want to see young people stop going to prison. We want to offer them the resources that maybe they didn't have before. We want to give them a second chance. Make sure that that's your thought process. That's truly what you believe. The other thing is make sure that you have a very firm understanding on adolescent brain development. Because if you can understand that the brain for a young person isn't fully developed until about 25, 26, that their decision making isn't the same as yours and mine, if you can understand why it is that they do what they do, and without their brain fully being developed, and then you add trauma on top of that and substance use, they're like teenagers. They truly are like younger children, and if you can understand that and what it's going to take to help them to get from one step to the next, you'll be able to approach this in the right way. The other thing is you have to believe in change. Right? You have to believe that if a person truly wants to change their life, that they can. You also have to believe that hope and love is a lot stronger than any addiction that's out there. Because a lot of times when our kids come to us, they're down and out the addiction. That's all you can see because they're so sick and they just want to run. Or you see all of the charges that are on paper, but you can't unsee it. But just know that there are some things that are truly stronger than trauma and stronger than addiction.
So what I would probably say is learn from other people. I mean, when we were thinking about starting a adult court, we contacted Tanya and visited their program, and we were like, we're not gonna do it from scratch. If we can take some of the stuff that she's doing and implement it in our county, then we're gonna do that. It's gonna be much easier. But also understand that just because you're not in second doesn't mean you can't do it. And just because you don't have all those resources doesn't mean you can't provide services to this population. So there's modifications you can make, there's little things, changes you can do that you can still make a difference in these clients' lives. I mean, another thing, I think the whole brain development thing was really helpful. I mean, I've raised teenagers. It's very satisfying to Brian talk about how when your kids come back and go, oh, you were right, by the way, and you were right like 90% of the time, not only 10% of the time, which is just so satisfying, right? But one of the things that I've learned is, my staff makes fun of me because I'm a list maker and I just live by my list. I have several different lists, but I've learned that these kids can learn from us and we can learn from them. And I've learned from clients and their families that they're good people. And they've had, if I've experienced or if my children experienced even a percentage of the trauma and the neglect and the pain they've experienced, I would probably be in the same boat, or my kids would be in the same boat. So I think just knowing that this is, you can make a difference. You can, beg, borrow, and steal from other programs and, learn from them and use some of their stuff, but you can also do good work with limited funding and limited resources if you have the right team.
I can just add to that real quick. So at the second, we stole from San Francisco. So we also did the same thing. We researched young adult court programs nationally at the time. I think there was 3. But we called them, we set up meetings, our judges to their judges, attorney to attorney. We definitely looked at the 3 programs that were available nationally. San Francisco was the one that we decided on, and they mentored us. And now our young adult court program, we're able to guide and mentor other programs. Thank you.
Yeah, let me pick up on that. We have the advantage of not having to really start from scratch, because the first thing we did was reach out to these other 2 programs, and we've gone up and visited and sat in on court in the 2nd Judicial District, and that's been a real advantage to us. And I also agree with having the right people at the table. Being in a rural area, we do have a really committed local team. You know, our team tends to be a lot of the same people in all of our programs. And so I think our public defenders and district attorneys are all very committed to getting this program set up and going. And the other thing is we just have to be flexible. You know, when we run into a problem, like having a hard time getting a treatment provider, we just have to keep reaching out. And, you know, we may be having to look at doing some services like telehealth, and some services in person, but we're just going to keep plowing through until we get up and running.
I want to add one more thing. If you're going to have a program manager or kids in this population or any problem-solving population, you need to make sure that they're willing to advocate for their clients. And it's difficult and it's intimidating when you're having to advocate to a judge like why this person should be discharged when they're so frustrated and the team is so frustrated that they allow the emotions to kind of overrule, everything else, and we're done, we can't do anything. My program manager gets pretty discouraged sometimes, and I just keep on, you have to just tell her, fighting for those that don't have a voice. Just that has to be what drives you every single day. So just be willing and be strong and be comfortable and confident in your voice that you're advocating for a person. A person that has a life, that has a right to be in this area, in the population, working with other people just as anybody else does. That's not involved in the justice system.
That's great, guys. I mean, that's I'm sure that's some great advice to hear. It's not impossible to start a program like this, even if you maybe don't have as much access to the resources in your area. I wanted to touch on this a little bit, but we probably should have touched on this at the beginning. But what sorts of treatments and what sorts of programs do you provide to those who go into your program? Like what would it entail? What would it look like for somebody to go through your program?
Well, problem-solving courts are meant to work with high-risk, high-needs population. High-risk recidivating, high needs, moderate high needs basically means typically a behavioral health diagnosis of some kind. But the common denominator is typically these individuals have a pretty significant trauma history. They have to meet their treatment needs. So, if they have a substance abuse problem, then you need to make sure you're providing substance abuse treatment, intensive outpatient treatment. There's like all sorts of, if you're going to start a problem-solving court, you just go to ASD and they'll kind of tell you everything you need to as far as treatment. But I think for this population, you need a lot of case management. Your primary focus is case management and mentoring and guidance and, working with them. You'll tell them what to do, show them how to do it. It's much different than working with, an adult or population, I think.
And you're going to base everything off of the level of care system. So every client that comes into the program is going to look different. When you look at level of care, some are going to need inpatient. Some of them are going to need outpatient, IOP. Some are just going to need weekly counseling. Some are going to need sober living. They definitely do all in case management. When you just think about how to navigate our systems and how to get things in place, whether it's registering for school, it's getting your driver's license, no matter what it is, that right there can paralyze our young people. They don't know how to put one foot in front of the other. I mean, if we even look at our own lives and we look at everything that's on our to-do list, it can be overwhelming for us. So imagine a young person that has so much to do and they don't even know where to begin, and then they just feel embarrassed or ashamed or rejected. So that case manager helps them to take small little bites and to tackle one thing at a time in a way that is manageable and reasonable. And so case management, peer support workers, walk alongside our clients, that's just key. We really are constantly modeling to young people the behavior that we want to see them, follow through with. It's a pet peeve of mine when officers or any type of staff will say, well, here's the phone number, go call and make an appointment. Because what's the chance that they're truly going to walk out and make that appointment? But if you sit with them in your office and you say, we're going to make this call together, and you make sure that they have that appointment time and date before they leave, and you help them make the phone call, it makes a world of difference. You just took that confusion, all of that overwhelming, just the chaos that goes on in our heads, and you simplify it for them. And sometimes that's all they need. But it's a step by step and small successes. Every time they show up, every time they're present, whether they're dirty, they're clean, they're compliant, non-compliant, the fact that they showed up, that's a success, and that gives you something to work with. And they're there for a reason. It's because they don't want you to give up on them. They're trying not to give up on themselves, and they've already given up on themselves over and over again.
Thank you. So, that's great. I think we've covered quite a bit here. At this time, I think we can take a couple questions from the audience, if that's okay. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and walk over and I can hand you a microphone. Any questions? No questions? Okay, well, oh, Nancy.
I'm not going to ask a question if nobody else will. Let you get away with that. I'm just wondering about the age group that your program covers, and if you do any sort of different kinds of programming based on age, or is it really not appropriate to do that as more individual based?
Ours is individual based, and the population that we serve is 18 to 25. You could be in the program after the age of 25, but you have to have been charged 25 or below.
Ours is the same. And the difference in programming is just individualized treatment. We talk about that all day long, but I think you have to your clients where they're at and participants where they're at. And I think the big thing too is you need to get their buy-in. Somebody can tell me all day long what they think I need to work on. But it's not until I come to the realization that I'm willing to, I need to go to the gym. It's going to make me feel better. You need to try to get their buy-in. So I think just meeting with them and finding out what's going to be what's going to be their driving force, what is going to encourage them and want them to continue in the program, I think is really, really important.
Thank you, guys. Any other questions?
Thank you. Jeremy, I have a question for you all. This age group has been of interest to me for a while. And in fact, I did a presentation a few years ago to the Courts, Corrections, and Justice Committee of how a couple of other states and many European countries, if not most, have a different criminal justice regime for that 18 to 25 cohort. So right now we have up to 17 and then 18 and older. Would you all advocate New Mexico starting to explore whether we need something that bridges the Delinquency Act and the Adult Criminal Code for this cohort? Thank you.
I don't know if you say amen and yeah, I'll stand by you. I don't know, but yes, I just went to a conference actually, reading into conference with the Supreme, one of the Supreme Court justices about that juvenile and emerging adult and how important it is to change the way sentencing occurs, the way probation has work. Absolutely.
And I just hope that the different counties or districts that are here, I think everybody should look at themselves and where were you at 18, 19, 20, 25 years old? When light finally go on, or when did you make the biggest changes, or, you know, and if you can really even reflect it yourself or people that you know within your own family, it's after the age of 25 where sometimes you see those biggest leaps and downs, right? And that's why I feel like every district should truly have an adult court program. Because if not, we're truly not being fair to our young people that are picking up these criminal charges or that have behavioral health, substance use issues. We're not being fair, and we're not giving them a shot. And we all got a shot. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people in here that if you didn't make some serious changes, you wouldn't be where you are today.
Very, very true. Thank you, Douglas. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
And this is more for a person in the rural area. How big is your program? How many people are you serving in that 18 to 25 area?
We're anticipating a maximum of 10, or at least our first year. Just to help us get off the ground and understand where we are with the program. Now, it may grow larger after that, but we're expecting.
So I'll speak also for Farmington. I consider Farmington rural. So I think if you're thinking of starting one, I think if you start with small in your first year, our first year, our max was like 6. We were beginning 6 to 10 was going to be our max.
Very good.
Yeah, and then after that, much to my judge's dismay, and I don't know if you're a judge or if you would like to talk to the judge, but our max is going to be 25. We're probably going to be really close to that within the next year. So I think if you just start with 6 and then kind of figure out what you need, then
It's like a field of dreams, building maybe.
Yeah.
yes, we will for sure.
We have about 104 right now. Is that it, Coral? 104? 111. I stand corrected. I knew we were about right there, though. And we run on a wait list. I mean, we don't have enough staff. We don't have enough time for all the young people that need the resources here in Bernalillo County. But we did start off with about 5.
Thank you.
So, question.
I'm just wondering if you guys have a criteria. Are there some that you have to bypass, and are there ones that maybe are too much and may not be able to do the program? There's just some sort of criteria.
I mean, so again, the criteria is very standing, right? But I live in a very conservative area, so to be completely transparent, I mean, if they have a gun charge, or if, and close your eyes, considering the chance, which we're thinking about, but I mean, if it's a gun charge, if it's extremely violent or lengthy violent history, we just look at those cases a little bit closer. But there's not really anything that would be excluded. We would be taking
health or anything like
no,
that.
we want the mental health. Those are the ones we want. Those, I mean, and really and truly, that's what we're here for. We're supposed to be here to deal with mental health and substance abuse.
That's why we take the gun violence cases as much as we do here in Bernalillo County. One, because you see our gun crime is absolutely out of control. That all goes back to behavioral and impulse and trauma, the whole bit, their upbringing, right? And so those are the kids we want. I mean, those are the issues that we're dealing with in our community. So why wouldn't we want them? But getting buy-in, that is hard. People are afraid. Our judges have to be really brave to take on cases of vehicular homicide, when it's shooting at a dwelling, or stuff that's highly gang involved, cartel involved. But those are the cases that our judges go after, because that's where we're going to make the biggest impact. High-risk, high-need youth that have been involved in the criminal justice system for a very long time. I mean, who else? And that's who needs a mentor. That's who needs these services. If we're not fighting for them, I mean, and if you get one of those young people who are out there running the streets with guns and money and gangs, and everybody's looking up to them, and you can flip that one kid, again, the return upon investment, that's huge. You're impacting that whole neighborhood, that whole community. You turn that kid into a welder, an electrician, a pipe fitter, whatever it is that they want to do. right? Because they have to earn a living wage, but if you can convince and get to that one, you've gotten to hundreds. And so I say for everybody, like, be brave, take a risk, because if you don't, what are you gonna do? What's gonna happen? More people are just gonna die and our prisons are gonna continue to grow. We've gotta do something different. We've already tried to, put people in prison. We've already tried to jail our way out of this. It doesn't work.
So unfortunately, this is going to be the only time we have right now. But feel free to please approach them, our panelists today during the break or after the meeting today, because I'm sure you guys would love to talk more about it. But this is a wonderful panel. Thank you guys so much for doing this. It's been all around the